I actually remember after the first night, I was like, I don't think I could do this anymore because my voice was so just so messed up from screaming and all this stuff.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to channel 1031, the show where I interview other haunters about spooky things in the Halloween community. Today I have yet another very cool guest. He has over 15,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. He's incredibly talented when it comes to creating cinematic videos and horror short films, and he's even been an actor in a couple of haunts around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest for today is Jaden's Videos. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Jaden's Videos is an awesome guy. He has a lot going on in his own life, stuff he's doing on his channel, stuff he's doing on his Instagram. He has an awesome haunt every year, and we're going to get into that in the questions. I have a lot of cool things to ask him about on how he does what he does. So without further ado, let's get to the questions. Alright, so I'm going to start off with this question that I sort of start off with a lot of people because it's a question that explains a lot of how people get to where they are as a haunter. So I'm going to start it with you as well. So the first question is, what began your love for Halloween and what made you love creating Halloween things?
That's an interesting question because I've never really had like a specific answer. Because my family growing up, they've always been really into it. Like before I was born, they made the whole Psycho house, Norman Bates' house from Psycho and everything. They've always been really into it. So I think it was kind of a hereditary thing where I just kind of gravitated towards it. But there are some things in particular that I think helped it. Spirit Halloween for sure. Also, Disney, they do their Halloween party, and I live very close to there. So I went there when I was very young, and I think that heightened my liking for it. And just really just how my family always went big for it, just kind of was gravitated towards me, and I just kind of became bigger towards it than anyone else in my family ever had. I think a lot in part thanks to the community.
That's an awesome answer, and like I said, I try to ask my guests, all my guests, that question because there's always like very different answers of how people get into the thing that we all share now. And I haven't heard that yet. I haven't heard the answer of like everyone in your family also liked it. So it's really interesting to hear that you kind of like you said, inherited it as a thing you liked, and people around you liked it, and then you actually did it bigger than anyone had that you knew. So that's a really interesting answer, and I haven't heard that one before. This next question goes along kind of with the theme of what got you into what you're doing. And it's something that you do now, and I know you are still doing it, and maybe you're going to end up doing it in the future as a career. And the question is, what made you want to start creating cinematic videos and short films? How did you get started with all that? People who don't know, watching the video, if you don't know, Jaden does a lot of cinematic short films. He does haunt films when his haunt is built, and overall he's really talented when it comes to creating cool shots, writing short films, and creating these really compelling videos that are a lot of fun to watch. So what made you want to start creating cinematic videos and writing up your own short films?
Well, I got into acting in, I think, 2014 for school plays and stuff, and I wasn't really too into it yet, but I think Halloween Horror Nights was like my spark, because I went there and they do like extravagant stage shows and stuff, and I was like, I want to do that. And so I wanted to get into acting, and so I decided to start making my own films because I started to think of these stories and stuff, and I was like, you know, these would be cool stories where I can star in them, I can get other people to star in them, and so I started to make my own films in, I believe it was 2016 was my first one, so it's been a little bit now. And they just kind of grew and all started to connect together, and it's just a lot of fun to do, to tell stories, and especially stories for haunts. It's a very good way to portray that story to the viewer.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, and I'll say, like, anyone out there, if you haven't seen any of Jaden's short films or cinematic type videos, I highly encourage you to go do them because they are, like, awesome. I'm a big horror movie guy myself. I love horror movies. And I've written some scripts myself, but, like, short films, not anything even up to par with what you're doing. And even just like looking at some of your videos, you have like short films that are like half-hour long, 15-20 minutes long. And I really appreciate the fact that you can write scripts that can go for that long, because the longest I've been able to write a script for was something that would last around 5 to 10 minutes. So when I see something that you wrote and it actually goes on for 30 minutes, I'm always super impressed with how you can come up with an idea and really drag it along, write a script, and then create something that's that long and that good. Like, obviously, there's a lot of people who create short films and cinematic videos, but yours, you really are creating something that not like anything anyone else has done. They're really cool, they come out looking really good, and they look very professional. And again, the stories overall are very, very good, and they're well written, and I really appreciate your skill for being able to do that. This next question, you kind of just touched on it, talking about acting. So I guess this is the next question, and I'll ask you it now. And the question is, you've acted in haunts before, which is something not a lot of people have done in the community. You're one of the only people who have acted in haunts before. What is it like being an actor, and what does it take to be an actor in a haunt?
It's a lot of fun, but it's definitely very stressful. I have acted in my own haunts before, but that's completely different than like doing a full, because I can like tell myself what to do and stuff. It's a lot harder. So I did one called Sir Henry's Haunted Trail. They did one for Valentine's Day, this past Valentine's Day, so it was fairly recent. And they're one of the biggest haunts in Florida, so it was kind of scary going into it, but they're really nice there. And if you live in the area, I highly recommend you check them out. They do Halloween, they do Valentine's Day, they do all sorts of stuff. But it's very stressful, but in a good way. Like, there's a lot going on there, but it's very fun and exciting. I actually remember after the first night, I was like, I don't think I could do this anymore, because my voice was so just so messed up from screaming and all this stuff, and I just felt like I was gonna die. But I went back the next night, and it got better as I went on and did it. But it was a lot of fun, and people enjoyed it. But it's very hard, but if you're into that type of thing, I think it's definitely worth it, because it pays off in the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll say that haunt sounds very interesting, and I remember a while back when you had posted about it that you were acting in there. Around me, I only have Halloween operating haunts. One of the big ones around me is Reaper's Revenge, which is a decently big one. But I don't have any that do like Valentine's Day and other holidays. So I don't live in Florida, but if I did, I would love to check that out, because that sounds really, really cool. And I like haunts myself. I only recently started going to haunts within the past couple years that I could muster up the courage to actually be able to do it. But since I started, I've really, really enjoyed them. And so I have a ton of respect for people, the actors behind them, because they always are really cool. I have a lot of respect for the people who actually do the job, scare people all night long. And like you say, it's a lot of hard work. Like you're saying, your voice was lost by the end of the night, which is interesting and shows that it is hard work to be an actor. This next question, again, ties into the acting thing and you acting in haunts. And it's like, how do you prepare for going into being an actor for a haunt, and what do you do before opening? Is there anything you like to do, anything that helps you get ready and get pumped up for acting right before you're opening a haunt?
At that haunt that I worked at, we actually did like a thing all together where we would like get into character and stuff and just like start yelling stuff before we opened. So there was that, and I think that definitely helped a lot. And for my own haunt in particular, I don't really do anything, to be honest. I just kind of just go at it and just whatever happens, happens. But for that, I think I definitely want to implement that in more things, because that actually helped a lot, what they had us do, where we got into character before and basically did what we were going to do that night, so we're ready. It's definitely very helpful in knowing what you're doing and going into it.
Well, that sounds very interesting. I think that's a good suggestion for any haunt. I think getting all your actors together and kind of getting them all ready at once kind of gets them in the environment. It gets them in the, I don't even know what to call it. I guess the mood, like, to get ready to do that. So it's pretty interesting that the haunt you worked at caught on to that, and they were using that as a way to get their actors ready and get pumped up for doing the show and scaring people during the haunt. So these next questions go into your haunt, which obviously is something you've done for the past couple of years. Very, very popular in the community here. A lot of people really love it. I absolutely love it every year. I love what you do with the haunt. I think it's one of the most impressive that we see in the community. And you have a very, very cool storyline that goes along every year that you've done so far. So these next questions kind of tie into that. The question is, you are continuing your haunt storyline in 2021 with the Mortem Manor. Can you give any sneak peeks, or what do you think? Where do you think the storyline goes beyond 2021? Do you plan to continue it, or do you think this will be the last year of doing Nightmare House as your storyline?
This is definitely going to be the last year of Nightmare House. Decided this a couple of years ago. I think it was 2019, because I realized 2021 is actually the 10th year of Nightmare House. And so I was like, okay, that's a good year to end it. And I'm ending it in like this whole big cinematic thing where the story started. It's kind of like coming full circle, and it's gonna be a big year. It's gonna be huge. But I'm not quitting haunting after 2021. I just have a whole different plan of what's gonna happen, and I can't really say too much about it yet. But I do have a plan of what I'm doing next year. But it's not the same story.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen watching. You got a little sneak peek. Jaden's videos does have some plans for us for the future, and kind of branching away from Nightmare House. Very interested to see what he wants to do. This next question is a question that I like to ask people who build haunts, because they're, again, similar to the first question. There's a lot of different answers you can get, so I wanted to ask you, because obviously you put together a haunt every year. So the question is, what is the process of creating your haunts, and how do you plan for the build? Is there drawings? Do you kind of just build as you go? How do you think and design your haunt every single year?
Typically, the first thing I would do is, well, it's usually the year prior. I think about what my theme's going to be next. And so that's where it starts, is with the theme. And I go into kind of just figuring out the characters, figuring out the story just in my head at first, and then I write it down as I go. I actually am still writing down a couple little last minute things to make sure I get the story exactly how I want it. And then I would typically, I used to do blueprints myself, but I'm not too great of an artist. So I've been working with some people this year to do some concept art and stuff for me, and I tell them like exactly what to do, and then they do it for me. Like GMHaunts and stuff like that, other big haunters who are good artists, for example. They've been working with me on some stuff. Then I would just I usually write down all the props and stuff that I want to make in this app that I have, where you can check it off, and I put them down, and then I check off the ones that I made as I make them, and I just build the stuff as I go. I sometimes come up with more ideas as I go on, but typically not. I usually start making actual props in August, but I started a bit earlier this year. I'm working on some stuff right now, and then I usually start setup in September, but this year I'm going to start next month actually setting up the haunt. So we're getting down to it, and I'm excited.
Well, something you just said is something interesting, because not a lot of people can say this, but you can, because of the way your haunt works. Like you said, you even think of the characters and where you want the story to go. And a lot of haunts, like the big commercial haunts, they don't always have a storyline or characters, and they kind of are just planning on what they want to build. But in your case, you're actually doing two things, because you're planning on what you want it to look like, but you're also planning the storyline and the characters that you want to have involved in the story. So it's kind of interesting, because you're kind of working on two things when you're planning out your haunt and designing them. And it's really interesting to hear that you use blueprints, you check off props that you're creating, and you're starting a little bit early this year. So it's really interesting to hear that. This next question, again, ties into haunts and maybe what you'll end up doing in the future, or what you would want to do in the future. And the question is, do you see yourself owning a commercial haunt in the future? Are you interested in running a haunt that is not at your own house and running it on some other land?
I definitely do. I think, well, my main job I want to go into is acting, but really anything in theater I'm really interested in, and haunts do go under that specification there. And so this was actually one of the first jobs I ever thought was running a haunt, but then I decided, I want to be an actor as well. But I think running a haunt is definitely something I also want to do. I wouldn't say it would ever be one of the huge ones, since that's not the main thing I want to go into, but it's definitely something that I always want to do. I never want to not do a haunt, and so I definitely see myself getting bigger with it someday and doing it in a new piece of land or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your answer, because again, I try to ask anyone who creates haunts that question at some point in the interview, and you do get a lot of different answers. Some people are really interested and want to get a haunt. And I had Psychotic Circus of Savannah on the show a little while ago, and he actually said that he has a plan within the next couple of years to own a commercial haunt. And so it's interesting to hear some people like really want to jump at the opportunity, some don't want to do it at all, and then there are some in the middle, like you're saying, that it is something you want to do, but you also want to do another aspect of the job, which is being an actor. So it's interesting to hear how you're kind of interested in the whole, the whole idea of haunts. You're interested to do the acting and the actual owning and running of a haunt. So that's very interesting to hear that. Honestly, myself, I don't know if I'd be interested in running a haunt. I don't want to say too much at this point, but I'm building a certain amount of stuff for October to release on my channel that classifies as haunt. I don't want to go into too much detail on what it is. And I have a lot of fun like designing sets. And I don't know if you know, but obviously you can kind of see some of it in the background. I love creating displays. And from what I'm building for this year, I already started it. I love creating displays and creating sets, and creating things to display animatronics in front of. And I really like decorating and doing that sort of stuff. I don't know how much of a fan I would be of like getting actors and training them to scare people. I don't know if I'd be a fan of like that part of the job, or even acting myself. I don't know if I would like acting myself, but I do really like designing sets and kind of creating displays for people to see. So I don't really know. I think I would like the production design of owning a haunt, but for honestly, I don't think I would want to run a full commercial haunt, because I think it would be a little too stressful for me. This next question is the last main question that I have for you, and then there's a bonus question, but that's like a silly one. So the last question is, obviously don't say anything that you don't want to get out as of now, but the question is, are there any other projects that you would like to tell people about that you're working on besides Morna Manor, and what's coming in the future for Jaden's videos?
There's definitely some things coming next year after the haunt's over that kind of go into my next year plans, which are, there's a lot of films and stories and all sorts of stuff that I have planned. Right now I'm mainly directing my attention to the Morna Manor. Right now I'm actually getting ready to make the haunt films, so those can release soon. And so that's my main thing right now, but I do have some ideas of what I'm going to do as soon as that is over.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You get a little sneak peek. Jaden's videos have stuff coming out after the haunt that even tie into his upcoming haunt that's going to be after 2021. So you got a little bit of a sneak peek and exclusive take on what Jaden's videos has for the upcoming future. So the bloody bonus question for Jaden's videos is, obviously Ash from The Evil Dead has a chainsaw on his arm. So the bloody bonus for you is, if you could have, if your arm got chopped off and you could put anything, any weapon, any item onto your arm, it couldn't be a chainsaw because Ash already has that. But if you could put any item on your arm, what item would it be and why?
Jeez, that's kind of tough. Trying to think. So it doesn't have to be a weapon, right? It can be literally anything.
Yeah.
That's kind of hard. Give me a tricky one. I saw the other episodes and you gave like, I think GMHaunts, you gave him werewolf or vampire.
Yeah.
I got, what would I put on my arm? Let's do a hammer, because here's my reasons. It's very useful for building a haunt.
That's true, yes.
And it's good for self-defense.
Yes.
So I won't need to worry about, I have no arm, I can't defend myself in any situation. So I have those two things that are very important.
There you go.
It works.
There you go. That's a good answer, actually. I actually didn't even think of that one myself. I don't know what I would say. I think Ash's chainsaw is a great one. Maybe knives, maybe something like that. But the hammer is very useful. As he said, you could use it to build a haunt. You can use it for self-defense. There's a lot of benefits to having an arm with a hammer on it. So there you have it. There's the bloody bonus question for Jaden's videos. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going for about this channel 1031 interview with Jaden's videos. This is a ton of fun to film and create. Obviously, Jaden has a lot going on in his life with his haunt that he does every year. He's an actor. He's a lot of followers on his YouTube channel. He's a really interesting guy. He has an awesome collection. You can see some of it behind him, behind the camera there. He has an awesome, there you go. He has an awesome, oh, I didn't even see Wolf Spitter is there too. He has an awesome collection. And he just has a lot going on. He's a really cool guy in the Halloween community, and that is why I wanted to have him on channel 1031. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this interview on channel 1031, and remember, as always, for everything scary, I'm GMHaunts. I'll see you guys later for more Channel 1031 episodes. Goodbye.